Whoa, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. What do we got here? We got a new background. We got a new microphone. Got a new camera. Not using the new camera in this video because I can't quite figure it out quite yet. But even the old camera, I feel like has better quality when I'm not using the green screen. So definitely going to work on the look. Gonna get a better office look for you guys in the coming weeks. Probably about a month or so. I want to have a finished product and have a brand new layout for you guys. But just working through the kinks. Told you guys I was going to go out get a new microphone. Let me know in the comments below if you like the upgrade in terms of the audio quality. Just trying to improve the channel. I've got several suggestions for people telling me to try to improve that. Went out and bought a mic that, a bunch of people suggested that I go out and get. So I did it. And hopefully it sounds a lot better. Looking forward to, like I said, improving the channel as this continues to grow. And I appreciate all your guys' support, both on Twitter and on YouTube. Man, I've had so many, new subscribers, new supporters, new followers on Twitter in the coming days. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. But wanted to jump into a couple of topics tonight regarding the New York Giants. Sorry for the late upload. Traditionally, I like to get it up a little bit earlier, but I was on Mike's channel. And yeah, there was a couple things I wanted to talk about today regarding the New York Giants. One of which was just like the respect that the New York Giants are starting to get around the league. Of course, the NFL Power Rankings came out today, a day after Monday Night Football. Not that I read too much in the NFL Power Rankings; it's more so fun, but it's a good barometer to see how people feel that don't necessarily root for your football team, how they feel about your football team. And generally speaking, when it comes to the New York Giants, we're usually, at the bottom of their list. And unfortunately, in recent years, since I've been on YouTube, they've been right. As much as we may try to fight it as fans and so on and so forth, they usually have us at 28, 29, 30. And they've been right. The Giants have been picking in the top 5, 6, 7 of the draft each of the last 5 years or so since I've been on YouTube. So it's fun and interesting to see when they start to give you credit and you start to say to yourself, well, maybe I'm not that biased. Maybe I'm not that crazy. Maybe this New York Giants team is better than a lot of people may think. And maybe some of the skeptics are starting to actually buy into this New York Giants football team. So kind of wanted to go around a lot of the power rankings and see what they had to say about them regarding NFL.com, CBS Sports, ESPN. And I know a lot of people laugh at that and they say, who cares about what ESPN thinks? And I agree with you guys. But I still find it interesting when they start to give us some credit. I wanted to read into some of the things they had to say, and I wanted to give my full opinion. Also, wanted to dive into what Aaron Rodgers had to say. Of course, if you frequent YouTube, Pat McAfee's got a great podcast. I go on there every now and again. I watch it, and he has a weekly segment with Aaron Rodgers, which I think is probably one of the better segments that he has on his entire channel. Aaron Rodgers been on there. I think this is his third year on the McAfee show, and I always find it interesting. I've always been a fan of Aaron Rodgers, if you watch my channel, at least on the football field. And today, of course, one of the main topics of conversation was this prior week's game against the New York Giants. And in that conversation, he said a lot of very interesting things. Some of the things that I said yesterday, I really hammered home with the time of possession, why I feel like that's probably the biggest contributing factor as to why the New York Giants have been able to win some of these football games. And Aaron Rodgers, you take it for what you will when you listen to it, but basically shared the same sentiments I did as to why the New York Giants ultimately won that football game, or at least that was a big contributing factor. He also gave a lot of praise to Wink. And one individual in particular that I really wanted to point out, he deserves it, and that's Dexter Lawrence. Right now, Dexter Lawrence is playing at an all-pro level. It's been 5 weeks, and you have to figure that this is only going to continue due to the fact that he's not, the majority of this has been without Leonard Williams. It's been without a developed Kayvon Thibodeau. So you have to figure when they get Leo back into the lineup as Kayvon matures, it's only going to make Dexter Lawrence's that job that much easier. And when you really think about what this guy's been able to do, he's had the 2 key plays in 2 of these games, right? Chasing down Baker Mayfield, the sack this past week against Aaron Rodgers, was a man amongst boys the prior week against the Chicago Bears, in which he had 8 pressures. So he's been incredible. And Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers had a lot of nice things to say about him. So I'm going to pull up that video clip for about a minute and a half. We'll listen to that. And then finally, I wanted to talk briefly about these DJ Moore rumors and just give my overall thought process on it. About 2 weeks ago, people started asking me, Chris, would you think about trading Saquon Barkley? And I actually made you guys think a little bit in my live stream. And I said I'd actually be potentially open if the circumstances called for it, for potentially acquiring a player on this football team. And I'll give my reason as to why throughout this video. And if we were going to acquire somebody, I would think it would be at the wide receiver position. And I'll give all my reasons behind it. But the most obvious reason is we don't have any wide receivers right now, right? You look at that game this past week, and I'm not taking anything away from Darius Slayton. He played very well. but he's not a number one weapon. He's not a guy that you game plan around. He's not a guy that's going to transform an offense. David Sills, Richie James doing a good job. I'm not trying to knock these guys, but I think we could all agree, even if we get Wan'Dale Robinson back, and even if Kadarius Toney gets back out on the football field, I think we could all agree that we could certainly use an upgrade there. And if it makes sense, if it's a young wide receiver like a DJ Moore who would fit this scheme like a DJ Moore, and there's other guys you could look at that may potentially become available if the right deal presents itself. I'm not giving up a first-round pick, but have we seen trades like this in the past work out? Yeah, all you got to do is look at the Dallas Cowboys. They had a very run-heavy approach with Ezekiel Elliott. They went out there, they got Amari Cooper, and that completely changed that offense around that year. They ended up making the playoffs. They went on a big run. I think they won 7 out of their last 8. And you think about what a number one wide receiver could do for this offense with a threat like Barkley in the backfield, and it could do a whole lot, especially as this offensive line starts to get better. So I wanted to talk about DJ Moore, what CBS Sports had to say about it regarding the New York Giants and whether or not they could see them being interested. And like I said, it may not be Moore. It may be another wide receiver, but I would not be surprised at all. And maybe a small deal, maybe a 4th or 5th round pick for a younger wide receiver. But I would not be surprised at all if the New York Giants look to acquire a wide receiver at some point before the trade deadline, which is on November 1st. We'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. But first, I wanted to pull up the Aaron Rodgers interview and really show you guys what he had to say about Dexter Lawrence, what he had to say about Wink Martindale, and what he had to say about this New York Giants football team.
Let's talk about the game. Wink Martindale, obviously OG defensive coordinator. Seemed like you guys had things rolling early. Second half, different story. What was it, you think? Do you think it was something they were doing, you guys were doing, whenever you had a little bit of trouble there, or was it a combination of both, Aaron?
Well, I think sometimes a lot of that gets skewed based on the coin toss. They won the toss deferred, obviously, so we get the ball. So in the first half, we had basically one more possession than them. And, second half, we basically had one drive and then got the ball back with around 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter for our second drive.
I'm going to let this continue. But that, to me, that kind of speaks to the same point I said yesterday about the time of possession, right? You think about that. The New York Giants didn't give the Packers the ball back until there were 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They had one drive in the first 20 minutes of that second half. And by the time he got the ball back, the Giants were within 7 points. And there was 10 minutes to go in the football game. So the Giants drained all the clock. And to me, especially in recent weeks, that's been probably the most important factor as to why the Giants have been winning football games. Whether it be getting off the field on third down on defense or extending drives in the way in which the New York Giants were able to do against the Green Bay Packers this past week.
So it wasn't necessarily a ton of stuff that they did. It was we just didn't get the ball.
We got a good drive.
Our first drive in the second half after they made it 20 to what was it?
2013, I
think it was.
And
we drove down and then got sacked on third down. And then didn't get the ball till the fourth quarter with about 10 left, all tied up. And had three passes. Two of them had pretty good chance to complete. And didn't, and then punted it away, and then next thing you know, we're in 2-minute drive and trying 2-minute style drive and trying to tie the game up. So that was really what happened. I have a ton of respect for Wink. I think he's a fantastic coach. They got a good scheme. They got really good players, but they're aggressive. They come after you. They had a lot of different pressures. They had edge pressure. They had overload pressure. They had empty pressure. So they threw a lot at us. I thought we handled it for the most part pretty well. We just had basically the one sack, not counting the last Hail Mary attempt. So I thought the line held up pretty good. We ran the ball decent. They got some studs in the inside. 97 is a premier player and needs to probably get some more recognition for the ability that he has. Talking with our interior three, they think he's one of the top guys in the league for sure. And he played obviously really well for them, but they play really well together. They fly the ball. And we had some opportunities, but like I said after the game, our margin of victory right now is our margin of error. Is just, it's tiny. We need to,
and I'm going to leave it at that. Cause then he goes on, for about another 30 seconds to talk about his team. And we don't care about the Green Bay Packers. We care about the New York Giants. But I really just wanted to make note of what he had to say about Dexter Lawrence. He pointed him out individually. He said that members of his offensive line, his interior offensive line, made it a point to point him out individually, the impact that he had on that football game, praised Wink Martindale, talked about the scheme and all the different looks that it presented and how it caused at least some confusion. And and I think that, and you think about that, you're talking about arguably the best pre-snap quarterback in the NFL, one of the more intelligent quarterbacks from within the NFL, being a little bit, confused as to what Wink was able to do in that second half, how they were able to lock him down. But I also found it interesting that, and he's absolutely right, where he talked about the time of possession and the best defense is a good offense going up against a quarterback like that. The fact that they only had one drive in the first 20 minutes of that second half had as much to do with why the New York Giants were able to win that football game as anything else. The more opportunities you give Rodgers, the worst chance you're going to give your football team, right? More often than not, the Green Bay Packers are going to be able to at least put some points on the board. So I just found some of his points interesting and really wanted to make point of Dexter Lawrence. Right now, Dexter Lawrence is arguably the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL through 5 weeks. And I only expect that to get better. And hopefully at the end of the year, and I know that they extended him on the 5th-year option, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. A player as talented as he is, as well as he's playing, as well respected as he is by Wink and the members of this coaching staff, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets some kind of extension at the end of the year, much like I've talked about with Andrew Thomas. But that remains to be seen. Hopefully, Dex could continue to play at this level, but I expect him to. Not to say that I think he's going to get a sack every game, but I expect him to play at a high level, especially as some of the pieces around him get back, obviously, with guys like Leonard Williams and guys like Kayvon continue to improve throughout the course of the year. But I really just wanted to make a point of bringing that up to you guys in case you guys didn't get an opportunity to see what Aaron Rodgers had to say about your interior defensive linemen. The next thing I want to talk about was the power rankings, because like I said, we're so used to the ESPNs of the world, the NFL.coms of the world, the Fox Sports of the world, ranking this team near the bottom of the league, 30, 29, 28. Well, that's not the case anymore, ladies and gentlemen. This was ESPN's power rankings. ESPN had the New York Giants ranked at, I think it was 14. 14. No, they went up 14 spots. They were ranked 10th, I believe it is. It's blocked out because it says live on my through the stream yard. But they're ranked very high. And you see it on your screen as you're watching it. And this is what they had to say. Surprise, surprise. The NFC East is the best division in the NFL right now, with the Eagles, Giants, Cowboys having a combined 13-2 record. This is pretty much the Giants' only imposing obstacle on the road to the playoffs. They still have 3 games remaining against the Eagles and Cowboys and 2 against the Commanders. If the Giants could do well within the division, they were 1-5 in 2021 and are already 0-1 this season, they could very well make the playoffs. And that was from Jordan Renan. Of course, we all know him as Giants fans. He's one of the reporters for the team. Next up, this was from NFL.com. They had the New York Giants ranked at number 13. And this is what they had to say. The Giants aren't the most talented team in the NFC, and they're far from the healthiest, but they're competitive as hell. They compete like hell and put themselves in the best position to win each week. We saw that again on Sunday in London, where Big Blue scored an eye-opening 27-22 comeback victory over the Packers. Defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale cooked up a scheme that didn't allow Aaron Rodgers to score chunk plays. Green Bay was shut out on offense in the second half. Well, the undermanned offense was once again the recipient of the multiple impact plays from Saquon Barkley, who absolutely deserves to be in MVP conversation through 5 weeks. Speaking of 5 weeks, that's how long it took the Giants to match their win total from 2021. And then finally, this is from CBS Sports. They had the New York Giants ranked the highest of any of the major affiliates that I saw. They had them all the way ranked as high as 8th. They faced the Ravens this week in what should be a real challenge for their defense and defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, who was with the Ravens before going to the Giants. So not much of a descriptive breakdown as to why they were ranked 8th there, but giving them a lot of props. So I just wanted to make note of that and show you it's not just me. It's not just you. There's people around the league that are starting to buy in to the New York Giants. Whether or not they're buying into them to be, sustainable, that remains to be seen. But through 5 weeks, they've been impressive. And through 5 weeks, a lot of people have them amongst, or at least near, the top 10 teams in the National Football League. And how couldn't you? They're 4-1, and they've beaten 2 quality opponents. So exciting times as a Giants fan, and something that we haven't been used to in quite some time. I couldn't tell you the last time we were ranked that high in the power rankings. I'm sure it's 2016. And even throughout most of 2016, we probably weren't ranked that high. So really good stuff, guys. Really good stuff. The other thing I want to touch on briefly was DJ Moore. And like I said, I'm not married to just the idea of DJ Moore if we're looking for a wide receiver, but he's an interesting potential candidate due to the fact that there's a lot of turnover there now. They got rid of the head coach. It seemed like he at least had a lot of say in terms of the personnel decisions. He liked Sam Darnold, right? A lot of people, before he became the Panthers head coach the year before, he almost went to the New York Jets because of how much he liked Sam Darnold when he was a rookie with the New York Jets, I think it was, or maybe it was his second year with the New York Jets, I should say. And a lot of people thought he was going to take that job because of it. Didn't end up getting the job. And then I don't think it was a coincidence that Darnold ended up with the Panthers when he had the job. So you have to think that Matt Rule had a lot to say in terms of the personnel decisions while he was there. He also had a 7-year contract. So now that Matt Rule's gone, a lot of people are thinking there could potentially be a fire sale. From what I've read, the Panthers have tried to downplay that. But what would you expect the Panthers to do? They're not going to want the world to know that they're trying to trade everybody. It's only going to hurt their value, right? So if they're looking to trade guys like DJ Moore and looking to trade guys like Christian McCaffrey, looking to trade guys like Robbie Anderson, they're not going to make it known to the world. Now, if they were to make a trade, I do think the dead cap hit, and we'll get into it, would be monstrous. So I don't know if they'd look to trade DJ Moore. Maybe they would in the offseason, maybe not in season. But it's an interesting topic to talk about. And I don't want you to just think of it from the context of DJ Moore. I want you to think of it from the context of the New York Giants just going out there and acquiring a legitimate number one, or at least a guy that would be a number one wide receiver for this current football team that could take some of the pressure off of Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. This does not mean interest has not come in. This was from an article from CBS Sports. Teams have inquired about wideout DJ Moore and edge rusher Brian Burns, according to SportsIllustrated.com's Albert Breer. The Panthers have not shown a willingness to part with either starter, Breer adds, but those two names have generated the most interest thus far. Then he later went on to talk about the 5 most likely teams that would look to trade for DJ Moore, and he mentioned the Giants as his number 3rd most likely candidate. Brian Dable is getting the most out of New York's mid-level talent, but imagine if Daniel Jones actually had a legitimate wideout at his disposal. With Golladay, a sunk cost, Kadarius Toney, and Sterling Shepard consistently banged up, and a 5'9" Richie James pacing the pass catchers, Moore would be an instant and major upgrade at the position. New GM Joe Shane would be giving a surprise contender a big-time reinforcement at a premium position, but he could also rest assured that Moore would be a long-term building block, regardless of how things unfold at the quarterback elsewhere beyond 2022. And that's kind of been my outlook on this, at least being a potential thing. You know, people have asked me, like 2 weeks ago, I talked about this as a possibility if the team kept winning football games that they may look to go out there and add a wide receiver, but it would have to be a wide receiver that would make sense. It would have to be a young wide receiver that you could build with for the next 4 or 5 years, not just specifically for Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones doesn't work out, you still have this guy here for 3 years that could help grow a young quarterback that may replace him if Daniel Jones doesn't end up being the long-term answer. But by doing this, I think it helps a lot of things in season. One, it immediately upgrades your offense. With the threat of Barkley and the threat of Jones's legs, having a number one wide receiver, just the threat is going to help Barkley in the run game. And having Barkley in the run game is going to help the number one threat, whether that be DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, DK Metcalf. I don't know. You know, whoever you think is the most logical guy that we could potentially go out there and acquire. It would immediately make the offense better. 2, it gives you a much better look at Daniel Jones. I think we could all agree right now, looking at this offense and looking at the weapons he has to throw to, that Daniel Jones is very handicapped. His only real weapon right now is Saquon Barkley. So I think we could all agree with that. So it gives you a much better look at Daniel Jones, a quarterback that you're trying to analyze this year to see if he is somebody that you could grow with into the future. 3, if you were to acquire a wide receiver in season this year, it gives that wide receiver 7, 8, 9, 10 games, I should say, to build chemistry, not just with Daniel Jones before next season, but to build chemistry from within this offense, right? Instead of having to worry about the guy coming in next year and having to learn a brand new scheme and having a 4 or 5 week learning curve, this guy comes in, he starts to build chemistry with your quarterback immediately and builds a rapport from within the offense. And 4, it gives you more freedom from within the draft. Now, of course, you'd have to trade draft picks. All right. So in that sense, maybe you could argue it wouldn't. But I think right now, if the season were to end, the New York Giants, if they're not going quarterback, almost absolutely have to go wide receiver. If you were to bring in a guy that you felt like could be a legitimate number one option in this offense, and DJ Moore seemingly would, I'll pull up some of his, actually I don't have him, but his stats are good. He had 3 straight years of over 1,100 yards, only 4 touchdowns, but he just seems like the type of wide receiver that would fit this offense very well in terms of his route running ability, the different ways that you could kind of use him. He's 6 foot, has decent height, and a very good wide receiver, for a former first-round pick. And he's not happy, supposedly, in Carolina right now. Reports have come out that he's not happy with Baker Mayfield and the way that he's being utilized in the offense. Has less than 200 yards so far this year. And there's been rumors now for a couple of weeks that he may want out of there. Now, the next question that comes to mind is the contract. And, how would they go about doing this? Because when you look at this contract for DJ Moore, the dead cap it right now, and I don't know how they'd go about doing this, but the dead cap it right now is $41 million. So I would think the New York Giants, if they were to make a trade like this, they'd have to assume some of the costs because Carolina's not going to take on all that salary. If they're going to trade DJ Moore, maybe they would have to restructure the contract. I don't know how they would go about doing it. if he were to become available. But like I said, it may not just be DJ Moore. But for this year's salary cap, if nothing were to change, you have to figure the Giants would only have to take on a portion of that, right? Because you don't have him for the full season. So I'm sure if the Giants really wanted to add a guy like DJ Moore, they could certainly make it work. And then after that, well, the cap hit is significant, $25 million and $20 million each of the next 2 years. So you have to think long and hard about that, right? But the market for the wide receiver keeps going up, and it's only going to get higher. You look at Christian Kirk. He got $20 million a year on average this year, and he's nowhere near the level of a number one wide receiver throughout the NFL. So it's something to look at. I think in the end, due to his contract, DJ Moore is probably not the most realistic option for the New York Giants. That being said, I'm sure there are options out there. And I think Joe Schoen at least will inquire around the league about some potential wide receiver options that the Giants could look to bring in, that if he feels like the right guy's out there for the right price, that could help grow this offense from within season, and the Giants continue to play competitive football, and he feels like he can help his quarterback for a reasonable cost. I'm sure he'll at least look to potentially look to do something like that. Do I think DJ Moore is the ideal fit based off his contract? Probably not. On the field, I think he certainly is, but the contract is certainly another question in itself. But I wanted to briefly talk about that. I know that's a hot topic that a lot of New York Giants fans have been talking about. So I'm definitely pro wide receiver if the right deal presents itself, especially if we continue to win football games. And the trade deadline is only 3 weeks away. I think we got 3 games before it. It's on November 1st. But it may not be DJ Moore as the guy that I'd be interested in. I'd have to look around. Like I said, Deontay Johnson's a name I've heard. DK Metcalf's a name I heard. I haven't really looked into their contracts. I only brought him up because I've started to see rumors triculate throughout Twitter regarding the Giants and potentially having some interest in him. But, yeah, and as far as the power rankings goes, great news, guys. We're starting to get respect around the league. It's fantastic, and hopefully we stay there. Hopefully this week we beat the Ravens. If we ever beat them, you're going to start to see people, talking us up as a top 5 team in the NFL. How crazy is that? But absolute insanity there, and great to hear that Dexter Lawrence is starting to get some recognition throughout the league. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.